Have you ever looked back on a moment in your life and thought, how could I have been so blind? What if I told you that stupidity isn't about lacking intelligence, but about the subtle, invisible ways we sabotage ourselves daily? It's the choices we make without thinking, the emotions we let control us, and the habits we refuse to break. Stupidity isn't some far-off concept reserved for others. It's a quiet, insidious force lurking in every one of us, waiting for a chance to take root. The real question isn't whether we've been foolish. We all have. The question is whether we're brave enough to confront it and wise enough to rise above it. By the end of this video, you'll not only recognize the 6 undeniable signs of a foolish person, but also learn how to eliminate them, transforming yourself into someone others admire and respect. Don't just watch this. Immerse yourself in it, because the answers you've been searching for might just be waiting here. But here's the twist. These signs are not random. They're the same behaviors that the ancient Stoics warned us about centuries ago, behaviors that prevent us from living with virtue, strength, and clarity. As we unravel these truths together, you'll feel a deep shift within, a call to action that pushes you towards self-mastery and resilience. And here's why you should stick around. At the end of this video, you won't just understand what separates the wise from the foolish. You'll possess the tools to become the person you've always aspired to be. So, hit that subscribe button now, not for me, but for the future you deserve. This isn't just a video, it's the beginning of a transformation. Are you ready? The ignorance of emotional slavery. Emotions, they are the fire that can either warm us or burn us alive. For the Stoics, emotional slavery is the first undeniable mark of a foolish person. Imagine being at the mercy of every passing feeling, every wave of anger, envy, or despair. It's like being a puppet whose strings are pulled by forces outside of your control. When your emotions dictate your actions, you become reactive, impulsive, and ultimately self-destructive. But here's the most dangerous part. Many people mistake this emotional chaos for passion or authenticity. They believe that feeling deeply is the same as living fully, not realizing that unbridled emotions often lead to choices that they will regret for a lifetime. Take anger, for instance. How many relationships have been shattered, careers derailed, and opportunities squandered because someone couldn't control their temper? Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, warned us that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Yet, a foolish person does the opposite. They surrender their mind to external triggers, letting others dictate their state of being. Picture this: a single insult, a missed opportunity, or a fleeting moment of jealousy can spiral into days, even weeks, of turmoil. The wise person, on the other hand, meets such moments with calm resilience, refusing to give power to what they cannot control. So, ask yourself, are you the master of your emotions, or are you their prisoner? The foolish person also falls into the trap of constant validation. They let their happiness hinge on the opinions of others, chasing approval like a dog chasing its tail. This emotional dependence is a silent thief, robbing you of inner peace and self-worth. Seneca, another Stoic legend, aptly put it, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." In other words, the foolish person fears rejection, yet endlessly craves recognition, a paradox that leaves them perpetually dissatisfied. To live wisely, you must break free from this cycle. Stop seeking your worth in the eyes of others. Instead, cultivate a fortress within, a place where your sense of self is unshaken by praise or criticism. Now consider this. How often do people let fleeting emotions drive permanent decisions? A moment of fear can lead someone to quit a dream they've worked years to build. A moment of pride can make them refuse advice that could save them from disaster. Epictetus, another towering figure in Stoicism, taught us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The foolish person reacts without thinking, driven by their emotional whims. They become a leaf in the wind, blown in every direction, never grounded. The wise person, by contrast, pauses, reflects, and chooses their response carefully, ensuring that their actions align with their values. This is not easy, but it is necessary for a life of purpose and fulfillment. So, where does this leave us? The first step to wisdom is recognizing the chains that bind you. Emotional slavery is not just a personal flaw, it is a universal challenge. But here's the good news: you can break free by practicing mindfulness, by questioning your reactions, and by grounding yourself in principles instead of feelings. You can reclaim control over your life. And remember, this journey isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about mastering them. As you ponder this chapter, ask yourself, what emotion has been controlling you lately, and how will you take back the reins? Hit that subscribe button now, because in the next chapter, we will unveil another sign of foolishness that might just change the way you see yourself forever. The folly of constant excuses. Have you ever met someone who always has a reason for why they can't move forward in life? Every failure, every missed opportunity, every shortcoming, all of it blamed on circumstances, others, or sheer bad luck. This is the second mark of a foolish person, the tendency to cling to excuses like a drowning man clings to a piece of driftwood. But here's the harsh truth that most people avoid. Excuses might protect your ego in the short term, but they erode your character in the long run. When you live a life of excuses, you trade accountability for comfort, and in doing so, you surrender the power to shape your destiny. The ancient Stoics understood this all too well. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You must build up your life action by action and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible." In other words, progress is about ownership, not excuses. The problem with excuses is that they breed mediocrity. Imagine this. A person claims they don't have time to exercise, yet they spend hours scrolling through social media. They say they're unlucky in love, but refuse to confront their own toxic behaviors. They insist that success is out of reach, yet they avoid taking the smallest steps toward their goals. These excuses might sound valid on the surface, but they're often nothing more than a shield against the discomfort of change. As Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it is because we do not dare that they are difficult." A foolish person sees the obstacle and stops. A wise person sees the obstacle and asks, "How can I overcome this?" If you want to escape the trap of excuses, you must start by facing the truth. Not the truth as you wish it to be, but the truth as it is. Excuses don't protect you, they hold you back. Let's go deeper. Excuses are seductive because they absolve you of responsibility. If your failure isn't your fault, then you don't have to do the hard work of changing. But this is where the foolish person stumbles and the wise person thrives. The Stoics believed in the power of self-discipline and accountability. Epictetus taught that no great thing is created suddenly. This includes your character, your success, and your happiness. By taking ownership of your actions, you unlock the ability to grow, adapt, and ultimately thrive. Reflect on this. What excuse have you been holding on to, and what would your life look like if you let it go? This isn't just a question, it's a challenge. Subscribe now, because in the next chapter, we'll reveal another trait of foolishness that might just make you rethink everything you thought you knew about strength and wisdom. The arrogance of knowing it all. Few traits are as destructive as the arrogance of believing you already know everything. This is the third undeniable sign of a foolish person. Such individuals wear their ignorance as armor, pretending it's wisdom. They dismiss new ideas, reject feedback, and scoff at the possibility of learning something from others. But here's the tragedy. When you close yourself off to growth, you not only stop evolving, but also actively regress. The Stoics had a profound understanding of this flaw. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If anyone can prove and show to me that I think or act in error, I will gladly change it, for I seek the truth, by which no one has ever been truly harmed. The wise are humble enough to embrace correction, while the foolish cling to their false sense of superiority, unable to see how it blinds them. This arrogance stems from fear, the fear of appearing vulnerable or weak. Imagine someone who refuses to ask for help, even when they're drowning. They'd rather sink than admit they don't have all the answers. In doing so, they isolate themselves from growth opportunities, sabotaging their potential. Seneca warned us, "There is no person so fortunate that there shall not be by their side someone who wishes to ruin them." The truly wise person understands that the greatest enemy often resides within, the ego. The ego whispers that admitting ignorance is a weakness, but in reality, it is the foundation of strength. When you acknowledge what you don't know, you create space to learn and grow. A foolish person, however, builds walls instead of bridges, believing that those walls will protect them when, in fact, they only isolate them. Consider this. How many people miss out on life-changing wisdom because they believe they've already figured it all out? They walk through life with a narrow lens, seeing only what confirms their existing beliefs. But the wise person, the true Stoic, seeks understanding even in the unlikeliest places. Epictetus reminded us, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." The foolish person speaks endlessly, eager to prove their worth, while the wise listen intently, knowing that every person and experience holds a lesson. As you reflect on this chapter, ask yourself, when was the last time you truly listened to someone with the intention of learning? If you're ready to leave behind the arrogance of knowing it all and embrace the humility of lifelong growth, hit that subscribe button. In the next chapter, we'll explore another subtle yet dangerous sign of foolishness, one that might hit closer to home than you expect. The pursuit of empty approval. In the age of constant validation, the pursuit of empty approval has become one of the most common yet destructive marks of foolishness. This is the 4th unmistakable sign of a person trapped in ignorance. They crave attention, applause and admiration, but for all the wrong reasons. Their self-worth becomes dependent on how others perceive them, turning them into a slave to public opinion. Marcus Aurelius warned us, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This obsession with external validation is not only exhausting, but also deeply unfulfilling. It's like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become. When your worth is tied to the approval of others, you lose sight of what truly matters. Imagine someone who spends hours curating their online presence, carefully crafting a facade of perfection, only to feel empty when the likes and comments inevitably fade. The Stoics believed that true contentment comes from within, not from the fleeting opinions of the crowd. Epictetus stated, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because the wise understand that seeking validation from others is a trap. It distracts you from your purpose, drains your energy, and keeps you from focusing on what genuinely matters: your character, your principles, and your inner peace. A foolish person chases applause, while a wise person builds a life that doesn't require it. Think about this. How much of your time and energy have you wasted trying to impress others who don't truly care about you? The pursuit of empty approval is a treadmill that goes nowhere. The more you run, the more you stay in the same place. Seneca put it best. How much better to pursue a straight course and attain a goal where the words good and bad have meaning in your own mind rather than in someone else's. The wise person recognizes that external validation is fleeting, but internal fulfillment is lasting. If you find yourself caught in this cycle, it's time to step off the treadmill. Subscribe now to join us in uncovering the next sign of foolishness: a trait so insidious that it often masquerades as strength. Don't miss what's coming next. It might just change the way you see the world. Refusal to take responsibility. The refusal to take responsibility is perhaps one of the clearest and most damaging signs of a foolish person. This fifth hallmark of stupidity reveals itself in those who are quick to blame others for their failures, but slow to acknowledge their own role in their struggles. They construct elaborate excuses, point fingers, and shirk accountability, all in an attempt to shield their fragile egos. The Stoics viewed this behavior as not only counterproductive, but also self-destructive. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." A foolish person denies this truth, preferring to live as a victim of circumstance rather than as the master of their destiny. Taking responsibility requires courage, a willingness to face the uncomfortable truth that our choices shape our reality. Imagine someone who constantly blames traffic for being late to work instead of admitting they failed to leave on time, or someone who blames a lack of resources for their failures, ignoring the countless examples of individuals who achieved greatness despite starting with less. Epictetus taught, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." A wise person understands that while external factors can influence outcomes, our reactions and decisions carry far greater weight. The refusal to take responsibility is not just an act of ignorance, it's a surrender of personal power. Now, think about your own life. Have you ever caught yourself making excuses for your shortcomings instead of taking ownership? It's a bitter pill to swallow, but admitting your faults is the first step toward growth. Seneca reminds us, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." The foolish avoid this friction, but the wise embrace it, knowing that accountability is the cornerstone of self-improvement. If you're ready to leave behind the blame game and step into a life of true empowerment, subscribe now. In the final chapter, we'll uncover the last and most insidious sign of a foolish person, a trait so deeply ingrained that it often goes unnoticed. You won't want to miss it. The reluctance to embrace change. The final and perhaps most insidious sign of a foolish person is their reluctance to embrace change. This sixth hallmark of ignorance traps people in a web of stagnation and fear, preventing them from evolving and adapting to life's inevitable shifts. Change, as the Stoics understood, is the only constant in life. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change, and accustom yourself to the thought that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things that are and to make new things like them." Yet the foolish resist this truth, clinging desperately to the familiar and fearing the unknown, even when it holds the promise of growth. Imagine someone who refuses to learn a new skill, despite knowing that their livelihood depends on adapting to new technology. Or consider the person who stays in a toxic relationship because they fear being alone, even when solitude offers the chance for healing and self-discovery. This resistance to change is not only a rejection of progress, but also a denial of life's natural flow. The Stoics believed that true wisdom lies in aligning oneself with the course of nature, accepting what cannot be controlled, and taking proactive steps in areas where influence is possible. Seneca wisely stated, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. To refuse change is to refuse life itself." Now look inward. How often have you hesitated to embrace change, even when you knew it was necessary? The fear of change is deeply human, but it's also a hurdle that separates the wise from the foolish. Those who resist change remain stagnant, while those who accept it grow stronger, more resilient, and more in tune with life's rhythm. Epictetus declared, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." Change often involves letting go of not just old habits, but also old environments and relationships that no longer serve you. If you're ready to break free from the chains of resistance and step into a life of dynamic growth, subscribe now. This journey doesn't end here. Our next video will dive even deeper into the practical steps for cultivating Stoic resilience and wisdom. Don't miss it. Your transformation begins today.